What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others. Hey, hero community. We are looking to feature more amazing social impact heroes on our show, and I'll bet all you listeners out there know a few that deserve to be recognized. If you or anyone you know should be on our radar, then you absolutely have to nominate them to be an iSpark Change social impact hero. Just click the link in the show notes below to help us find out about more people that are doing great things. Welcome back, Impact Heroes. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to our latest iSpark Change social impact hero, TEDx motivational speaker, corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion superwoman, Alycia Anderson. Alycia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to have you on the iSpark Change podcast, Alycia, because as I was just telling you off air, iSpark Change is about social impact and spreading positive change. And I feel that you and your work really do both. So you fit both sides of iSpark Change.
Check, check. I love it.
Check, exactly. So part of you being on the show is because we consider you what we call a social impact hero, because you spread positive change in the world. You're having a positive impact on humanity with the work that you're doing. So first, congrats on being an iSpark Change social impact hero, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Now, every hero, so if you've ever watched a Marvel movie or anything, every hero has an origin story. You know, the story of where they came from, how they became a hero, quote unquote hero, and how they got to where they are today. So, tell us, what's your origin story? How did you first become a social impact hero?
Well, my story really starts at birth. So that was quite a while ago. I was born with a disability called sacraligenesis. I was born an identical twin to an able-bodied sister. So literally one egg split in two. And that's where my journey of inclusion began a long time ago, way before society was really focused on inclusion and diversity and equity and all of these things that we're talking about right now. And when I was born in the mid 70s, so dating myself, but being born with a disability, my disability, I lived my life from a wheelchair. And that was before, legislation was passed, Americans with Disabilities Act, Rehabilitation Act, laws that are now in place to sort of mandate a sense of equality within our society. So when I was born back then, it was really when the disability rights movement was just getting started. So a lot of things were inaccessible. There was a lot of no's to be included. Children were segregated into separate classrooms that had disabilities, no matter what type of disability. So there was a lot of advocacy that my parents needed to sort of take the lead on in a society that wasn't really quite there yet. And so this journey of inclusion happened with my parents really having a goal of my sister and I have the same opportunities and experiences in life. And so from a young age, that's what they did. They advocated for me to be the only child that was integrated in traditional classrooms. I started playing wheelchair tennis when I was 4 years old, and that taught me to be competitive and strong and one with my wheelchair, my equipment, through play, which translated to my life. Very impactful, that piece of it. So my sister and I were just kind of like chasing after each other. She would jump rope, I would jump rope. I'd play wheelchair tennis, she would play wheelchair tennis. So it's been kind of embedded in me from a young child that inclusion is this thing that I'm constantly always working at so I can have the same opportunities as everyone else.
Yeah, Thank you for sharing that. And that is, I think, I don't know. Tell me if you look at it this way. I think that you were fortunate that you had a twin sister to go through your journey along with you, and that to see, her doing things and you do things and you're pushing each other in different ways and everything. I mean, did you feel that growing up, or still maybe?
Oh, absolutely. She was literally the greatest gift that I could have ever had, my secret weapon, honestly, because of that. And we didn't realize we were different from one another until like adolescence, when she's maybe dating more than I have the opportunity, and that piece started to happen. And so when I'm speaking, within my platform, my platform is called Heart of Inclusion, and it's all about human to human connection. And we learn that at a young age. If you care about someone, you put in the work. You spend maybe a little extra money. You are constantly striving to include the other because you care about them and you don't want to leave somebody behind. And that's what inclusion is all about for me. So she absolutely was the greatest gift of my life, because whatever she did, I would do, wouldn't think about it twice, would just go for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you still live close by? Do you still get to see her regularly and interact with her and everything?
Yeah, so we're about an hour apart, which is probably healthy for our husbands because we're very attached. But yeah, I mean, growing up, same friends, same jobs in high school, same all of that. And when we really started to separate was when, we went to different colleges, and that was kind of like coming into our own selves for a little bit, and then we came back together. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're really close.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we don't have twins, and I not none in my family, but just all the twins that I've had as friends, they just have that bond that is unlike any other. And
It's
so,
awesome.
yeah, very
It's really
special.
awesome.
So, in having folks on the show like yourself that we call a social impact hero, one question I always have for everybody is do you view your work as heroic work? Do you view yourself as a hero? And if so, or if not, then how do you view your work?
So I don't know if I would use the word hero, just because I'm probably a little bit too modest for that. I view my work as something that is needed and is something that I can give. I feel like it's more of a gift from me to society while I can. Um, and it's kind of an opportunity to pave forward the path of this disability, the hard stuff and, the wins, and allow I've always known that I'm this bridge for people to see what is possible. I am watched, whether I'm pushing a cart at the store, or I'm getting in and out of my car, or I'm going into a big corporate meeting in front of a ton of people and they're not expecting me to show up in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
So I've always had this opportunity to allow other people to learn what is possible through my actions. And when I was little, my dad would tell me all the time, this is going to be a tough life. Like, you are going to run into obstacles that are going to be really hard. And you just have to do the best that you can with what you've been given. You need to smile, because as you are doing these simple things to maybe things that look a little harder, people are watching, they're learning, they're starting to believe. And this is the greatest opportunity that you have in life to, what I call, widen the pathway, widen the doors for people that follow me. So people with disabilities, any type of disability, invisible or not, can get the job that they want, are, not left behind because we believe that they can't. And so I feel like I've just been this bridge to sort of allow people to really see what's possible.
Yeah, okay. So I love the term that you use, bridge, that you're a bridge to allow people to see as possible, because in the work that I do, and obviously it's completely different work, but in the work that I do, I'm always trying to show people that changing the world is possible. That it's not too big for any one individual, that even though, because for a long time I felt, hey, I'm just too small, I'm just one individual, what can I do that's really going to make a difference, that's really going to impact the world and impact others' lives? And then I realized that every action can have an impact on others, and that it does make a difference. Every action, just all day long, there's different actions that we do that have an impact. So for yourself, as you say, being that bridge for them to to come to realizations, or learn things, or have an understanding, a deeper understanding. Um, did it? I mean, I think that's a awesome way to look at it. How did you get to that point where you felt you're bridged? Because I'm imagining that wasn't a place that you've always been, that you had to grow into that.
I hated it for a lot of my life. It's taken time. Time is a magical thing to come into your own acceptance of who you are, and to see that the things that are different about you are actually those things that are your superpowers, or the things that will elevate your life if you are willing to acknowledge them, have a relationship with them, share them, discuss them. Um, and for me, because of sort of when I was born and the entire life path, I've had a lot of firsts. First to do this, first to do that, first to be integrated in schools, first person in a wheelchair at every single one of my jobs. First, a lot of firsts. And my favorite first has always been, you're my first friend with a disability, because I know following, when you start to have those human to human interactions, we're normalizing these things, and there's going to be so many more friends befriended, because we're not afraid of people's differences, but we're learning about the power that's behind all of them. And then it also gives us this enlightenment, whether whether anybody knows about disability or it can relate to it in their own lives. There's something that triggers people when I speak to them, that's like, oh, now I believe in this about myself, because this is what's different about me, and this is what makes me stronger or more able or whatever. And so um and it takes time to acknowledge that and have a relationship with it, and it's hard, and it's uncomfortable, and your insecurities are out. They're just, so it's taken me a long time to allow people to watch me and to absorb, and not feel bad if somebody doesn't say hello, and not feel bad if somebody says, hey, what's your name, let's learn about each other, because I know that if I smile, they're moving forward in their path, and they're like, oh, this is more palatable for me to include in my life slowly. So yeah, time's a big.
Time. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Time will change things. Time will empower us. I heard a lot of empowerment in what you were saying right there, not just for yourself, but for others, that they could feel empowered in their learning and everything. And one of the for social impact hero, it's actually an acronym about, the H, honor your purpose, and E, engages your audience in your mission, and that's where I see the E coming to light. See, so you are actually a hero, even if you don't
Oh, thank
identify by
you.
that, but but that you do engage people, because that allows them, what the engaging of their mission is, it allows others to understand, what you're striving for, what you are working on, what you're passionate about, because that's what helps to connect us all, is the stories, our life stories, our challenges, our adversities, our struggles, our strengths. That's what connects us. And then it helps not only to unite them with you, so they have an understanding of your work, but it helps to bring allies to your cause. And I know earlier we were talking about, allyship with I Spark Change, and your organization, and different organizations throughout the world, and the power of just having a lot of people working for the same types of things, diversity or inclusion or positive change, or all things that make the world a better place, so to speak. So tell me, since I brought up the H for hero, about that being that you honor your purpose. So because your purpose is what defines you, it's how you show up in the world and everything. So how do you feel that you honor your purpose? Is it through your speaking? Is it through everyday life? I mean, what do you think are the ways that you really honor your purpose of what you're really all about, Alycia?
That's a loaded question. I think it's all the above. I would say showing up um, throughout my life for sure. But a couple years ago, I decided several years ago that I am going to take action with my speaking and my consulting business and honor what it feels like is my soul's work. This what I'm doing today, it has been so deeply like in my soul for years. It's like, you need to be doing this. Why aren't you doing this? And there's so many excuses and insecurities to start. And I'm honoring what I truly believe that I am literally supposed to be doing with my life. And as I have done that and have been embracing it, like this year, my word of the year is rise. Like, I am getting up every morning early and I am hustling. I am pitching. I am getting in front of companies. I am trying to do as much work behind this soul's work that I literally possibly can. And as I'm honoring that feeling, it's a feeling. Like, I don't even know how to. It's just like fire that's inside of me. It's unfolding in front of me like magic. It's been so cool. So really working at it and being vulnerable and um just going for it is the way really been honoring it the last few years.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful place to be because that's where all your true strengths come from. For years, I know for me, I grew up with a very, authoritarian, disciplinarian father and everything, and so he didn't show a lot of emotions. I didn't show a lot of emotions, and it wasn't until I had, having three daughters, that tends to make you a little more emotional than.
I love
I
it.
grew up with four sisters, but having three daughters, and a wife of, almost 26 years, I mean, they've really pulled the emotions out of me to where I become a very, very emotional individual, at my age now. And it was something that has developed over time, that showing that vulnerable side, the emotional side, what I would consider the vulnerable side, that that was, showing weakness. But in reality, it's not. In reality, that's showing all facets of who you are. And that's where a lot of your strengths come from, are the vulnerabilities and the emotions. And as I said, that's what connect us all. So
Yeah, I've noticed too, the more you're in touch with that authentically, the more the doors again widen and the opportunity floods in. So I'm sure you feel that with your business as well. I can't imagine that you
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. So I have a question, because you mentioned in your last answer, you mentioned about there was a time where, some fears or insecurities. So what really shifted? What was the shift for you that was like, hey, now I've decided I'm going to go out there and, really focus on the speaking, or, what really changed? Was it a specific moment, or,
well,
someone, or what was it?
there was a few things. It was kind of, again, it was like the universe like coming in and giving me a bunch of signs all at once, to be honest with you, which might sound a little crazy, but like 4 years ago, I was invited to be in a Miss California wheelchair contest, which I didn't
Oh,
win.
cool.
I won Miss Congeniality, so I got something.
I can
But
see why. I can see why you'd win Miss Congeniality.
I did this speech on stigma and women with disabilities, and it went off really well. And so I finished that, and I was like, wow, that really felt good. I think I'm good at this. And during that same year, I got, my disability, like, I'm in a wheelchair, so that's how I live my life. But like, my disability, like the hard stuff is internal. Like, I have continual surgeries. Like, it's my pathway into tomorrow. It's something that I will always have to deal with. And depending on the year, or, it varies. And so there was this particular year I got pretty sick, and I was in the hospital. And I was like, if you don't get out of here and you don't say what you're supposed to say, like, shame on you. So that really lit a fire under my butt. And then a couple months later, I was at a concert, and my husband's in a wheelchair, and there was no seats, and this couple like got in front of us, and like we were in their way. And this big, he looked like a giant to me, but this man, he like turned around, he looked at me, and he was like, isn't there a place for people like you? Like, get out of our way. And then he locked arms with his wife and blocked us. And it shook me. I don't get shaken very often. Like, I let things roll off. I don't get offended. Like, we have to be able to communicate and not worry that we're going to make mistakes. And so it's rare I get shooken. But in that moment, I was just like, I'm invisible. It doesn't matter what degrees I have, how far I get in my career, like how well I present myself or not. I am a wheelchair. And so I started writing, and I wrote this speech called Inclusivity Removes Invisibility. And that's where I started. And so those three things kind of lit a fire under me to just start before I cannot do it anymore, which that's not in the future, hopefully anytime soon. But it really got me motivated to get the stuff out while I can.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing those, because I'm sure in those, when those situations were happening, those were difficult times. And this is a clean show, so I won't say any foul language, but I have some things that come to mind for that man in front of you that, oh man, yeah, that's really upsetting.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful for him. Like,
Yeah.
those are the blessings of the path. Like, it's the hard things. If we overcome them, that is
Hmm.
what makes his life so rich. So that was just one of those things. So
Yeah, and sometimes in life we need those moments to, and so one thing we, for iSpark Change, we have, our different terms like social impact hero. We have what we call a spark moment, and a spark moment is something in life where um, it's like that initial spark that's going to lead to something else.
I like that.
And for you, that, either it leads to some actions you take or some change in your life, or it's something that someone else does for you, and then that, that impacts you in a positive way, makes a change. And I look at that as a spark moment for you, because had that not happened, maybe you're not doing the speaking, or maybe, we're not having this conversation
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And it's, it's taking that situation and saying, all right, this is going to motivate me, this is going to empower me, this is going to move me to a better place, and I'll be better for that experience. Despite whatever the emotions might have been, in the exact time, looking at it that way. And that's how I look at things as well. There's one thing interesting. You talk about how you said you wrote, when you were going through a challenging time, you wrote. And I did the same thing in 2020 when the pandemic happened and my business had slowed down, and I found myself with no income, and anxious and worried about what I was going to do and feed my family and pay my mortgage. And then I realized that there was others that were far worse off than I was. And so I wrote a blog article about using the quarantine as an opportunity to help others, to be better, to be grateful for everything you have. And that writing really helped to motivate me and get me on a better path. And it sounds like you had a similar situation, with the writing, I guess, to get it out, or in some, cathartic way or whatever, to write about
Totally. I love
something
that.
to help.
Yes. Yes to all of it.
So tell me, because as a social impact hero, I know that there's been times that you have been that spark moment for someone else, that
Mm,
you have been the spark
thank
moment where something you said, something you did, someone you met, but some actions that you took were that spark that would cause a ripple effect for someone else, that you may not see the full impact of that ripple effect down the road. Just like that man in front of you at the concert, he might not know the ripple effect of how that completely changed, your life. But So tell me, share a story of a spark moment that you can think of a time where, your actions or something you said where you saw a positive impact on someone.
Oh, there's a lot that comes to mind, to be honest with you. And
And I knew you were going to say that too.
it's
Sorry to interrupt,
hard.
but I can always
So,
tell when someone, I'm like, yeah, every time I ask this question, I know they're going to have like 30 to choose from. So,
I mean, there's two things that I kind of want to mention. The first one is, um, I have always worked, and so like I've gotten very far in my career. I've been very successful, before I decided to go all in on my business. And um I know that when I am putting forth the effort to adapt, where it's a lot of the time it's been up to me to adapt to be able to navigate like a work environment, for it to be really successful for me. Um, but I know that I make an impact. And the one thing that comes to mind, first of all, is, it might sound silly, but I was the first waitress in a wheelchair when I was in college. And I used to wait on tables. I could carry 15 margaritas on my lap. I used to kill the tips, I was very successful. It's like where I learned how to sell before I got into college and then went to into my career and all those things. But I would roll into work and I would show society every single solitary time that I chose to do that, because inclusion is collaborative, right? Like somebody has to be willing to adapt, and I also have to be willing to go for it. And you come together and you find a way to make it work. And for this job in particular, we did that. And every day that I chose to get out of bed and go for it, I was showing society that people with disabilities can do any type of job, even the ones that no one would always count us out. So that's one. And then, like, most currently, like, I just did a TEDx talk, and my focus in that talk is about the conversation of ableism. And what I didn't realize when I started that conversation is nobody knows what ableism is. Like, this is a new
Mhm.
term in our society. And every time somebody listens to it, even my twin sister, my husband's sister, like, we're all able, I'm an ableist. Like, we all like kind of cross over an able body is superior over a disabled body. And we think that you're better off if have an able body and don't have any disability. And this like this thing that's embedded in our society, and people don't know what it is. And so in most recent, like, I feel like that has had a lot of impact for people to kind of understand what it is. And I say disable it, turn it off. So we
Mhm.
start taking the person as a whole, like all the layers, including the disability, and like lift that up. And so those are the two things that come to my mind right now in this moment. Um, but I have people almost all the time. I've never known anybody with a disability. I look at it completely different now. Like, it really is just this huge spectrum of life experiences. Again, so many firsts. So,
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So, two questions. One quick question on the first one. So, you said 15 margaritas. So, what was the place you worked?
I worked at a place called Chevy's Mexican Restaurant.
Oh, okay. I remember those from California. I don't know if they're in
Yeah.
other places. I remember them when I lived in California. Okay, so 50 margaritas. I'd say that's a challenge for anyone, wheelchair or not, to carry 50 margaritas. Like I can't carry 50 margaritas. I can tell you that right now. Um, and yeah, I'd spill those for sure. And then the second question is, so I watched your TED talk, right, about ableism and everything. And one question came to mind that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Okay, so you talk about how we can all, I guess we all, I don't know how do I say this. We all show ableism, in different ways. You included yourself in that. Do you think that it would be beneficial, or do you ever see a time that the word disability disappears? That's not even, or do you think that would be something that you would want or necessary? Do you see what I mean? Where it gets to a point where it's just that's all completely gone, and then it's not disability. It's just no, that's just Alycia.
Yep.
Or that's Regina, or like that's
Yep.
Rick.
So I get asked this a lot, about language, right? Language is important. And um, I don't want the word disability to ever be removed from my identity. Like, it is actually the most important thing. I think what needs to be removed is the stigmas that are around it. You know,
Mm,
it's
yeah.
very stigmatized in so many different ways. You know, like it really is. And so you know, I get asked a lot, like, would you prefer differently abled, or do you like disabled is so negative? And for me, and you'll hear this from a lot of people with disabilities, it's who we are. And
Hmm.
I don't it 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 makes able-bodied people feel better to say, "Oh, you're differently abled," or "You're this or that." It's an able-bodied comfort. And
Mm,
so it's kind of tying into ableism, you know? It's like, "No, I have a disability. It's okay to say it. And let's talk about it because there's so many powerful things that I could share with you about it. And there's hard things, but there's hard things for all of us. Like, let's talk about these things and learn about one another." So, personally, no. Like, for me in my life, and you'll probably, like, if you ask other people with disabilities, it really depends. I think the thing you really need to focus on is not making the disability your only identity, but understanding that it's an intersection of all of your identities. And that if you're talking about disability, it's Alycia with a disability. It's not disabled Alycia. And
gotcha.
you know, person first theories and putting the person before the thing that we're trying to avoid talking about is the most impactful way to kind of talk about disability. Alycia with a disability. Alycia, you know, so person first theories is a good way to kind of like translate more appropriate language. But I don't get stuck on that either, because a problem with disability is we don't even start the conversation because we're so worried about saying the wrong thing or the stigmas that are attached to it. And
Hmm.
we're just blocked in society about we're getting there. Like, there's so much movement going on behind this conversation right now. I cannot believe I'm seeing it in my lifetime. Like, I legit I'm starting to see disability all over the place. It's never been like that.
Hmm.
Um a lot of work to go still, but so we're trying to normalize it right now. And you talked about allyship. It's like, the more times I speak, my goal is to give my message and then create allies. And then, you know, and then I have companies like go and speak at a company, and then they're throwing up my message on their newsletter, and they're putting it out on their blog, and you know, and that's allyship. It's like learning something new and then sharing it with like your network. Like, it's all about
Hmm.
that for me. So,
Yeah, is that and thank you for explaining that because it's especially when you say person first. I mean, that really resonates with me because I identify as a father and as a coach, and I mean that those are just part of who I am,
mhm.
right? And Rick, and he's oh, he's a father, he's a coach, he's business coach, whatever. They're just a part of who you are. So I like the way you explain that, and that it is a part of you because it is a part of your story, just like any of us. Like me being a father is part of my story, or different things that have happened in my past and everything. The is part of when you're talking with your work that you do, diversity and inclusionary work, where people will share things like you said in their newsletters and everything. Is that, and I don't know how do I say this, is do you look at your speaking being more impactful or the work being more impactful, or both? Or you really, they're both as equally impactful?
It's both. I don't think I have one without the other. And on top of that, like, I'm like also just producing like training modules about ableism and disability inclusion in the workplace as well. So I think there has to be a sharing component. There has to be that allyship component. There has to be a training component. Like, there has to be several for it to all like work right. And it depends on your audience and what they need. You know, sometimes people
Hmm.
just need a speech. Sometimes people need a training module and they don't need anything else. Sometimes people just, so I think being nimble with the message and the product. So you're giving your audience, it's like me with my sales, I'm putting my sales hat on. Who's the client? What do they need? What am I solving for them specifically today? And it's going to be different for the next person tomorrow. It's really like
Yeah.
having that acknowledgement of what the person needs and the place that they're at in that moment.
Yeah, and with so the R in hero is that you ripple your message out to the world. So that's the way that you're rippling your message out to the world, is you're doing it through your speaking, you're doing it through training, and you're doing it through the work that you do with corporations and everything. And that's how what we say is it. And if you look at the acronym on our website, it says ripples a message out to spread positive change, because our mess is our message for all of us. And that's how we share what we call our beautiful flossomeness. So we're all flawed, we're all awesome. So we share our beautiful flossomeness, through our mess and our message that we share with others. And that's how we ripple our message out. So once again, check, you're the R. There's the R for hero.
And the
So
big thing that for me, like with my business and my platform, like when I speak, all of my talks are motivational for sure. Like that is a check. But my goal is to go in, I'm going into big corporations and I am talking about including disability in the diversity, equity, inclusion conversation that is everywhere, especially in the last couple of years. And also adding in the access conversation, destigmatizing all of that stuff, and talking about like return on investment for including this population that we don't include, and all the value that comes behind it. There's such a beautiful story behind leveraging your disability, what you've had to overcome, how that has made you more proficient in somewhere else. Like my last boss hired me because he knew I had to be a good planner. He knew I was in direct sales. I Uber planning, hotel planning, corporate office planning, accessibility. And he knew that planning strategy would translate to my work. And I was more qualified than the person that didn't have the disability. So taking those differences and so these are the messages I'm bringing into corporate America, is like leverage diversities, and then accessibility. Like let's destigmatize that and realize access enables your products and services to be more like universally chosen. Like accessibility creates products that is like path of least resistance. We're talking about things like texting, like Siri. Like there are tools that we all choose, that disability or not, they were all built because of through accessibility. And to be a disabled person with a disability, I just did what I told you to not, and to go into a workplace and it's stigmatized, like, oh, she might need some type of accommodation. But guess what? That accommodation is going to translate to your customer base. And there's so much value in shifting these conversations. And so I'm coming in from that standpoint in corporate America. I'm like, hire people with disabilities. Like they're so good. And so there's just so many reasons. And so that's really what I'm doing with my business, is normalizing these conversations, building communities of allyship, reimagining this better global understanding of humanity, and widening these doors for all of us to have the life that we choose, that is not chosen for us, but the life that we choose.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you shared that, because I think a lot of the words that you just used could be interchanged if you're talking about different types of, just diversity in general. So not just with regards to disability, but diversity of thought, diversity of cultural experience, diversity of race, and inclusion in all different types. So it makes a lot of sense, and it is the way that business is really shifting, and how business will grow, in the coming years, coming decades. And especially because the good news is that for like Gen Z, younger millennials, Gen Z, and the younger generations, they're far more open to that than, like my generation or older generations were. They're far more open to the diversity and inclusion and everything. So I see that those things will happen, hopefully in our lifetime, but I see that they will happen. And you even said earlier that it's moving faster than you had realized in your lifetime. And I think it will continue to do so. And hopefully it'll get to a point, before we're gone from this earth, where you can look back and say, wow, I had a hand in all of this,
Yes.
for yourself or myself. Well, the last part of Hero is that Hero opens their heart to the world. So I think you've definitely
Oh,
opened
yeah.
your heart to the world, that you have been authentic and vulnerable. You have shared some of the the things that make you who you are, Alycia. So one final question that we always ask on this podcast for Social Impact Heroes is, we know that your thoughts and opinions matter as an iSpark Change social impact hero. Okay. And so I'm going to ask you to peer into our crystal ball and tell me, what can the world become if everyone starts to believe that they have an impact on the future, that they can change the world and make the world the beautiful place that you envision and I envision?
The world will become open for all of us, accessible for all of us. It will be a place that we all belong and feel belonging, it'll be a world of belonging. And I think that sometimes like people with differences, they have to really fight for that. So, world of belonging, I guess.
World of Belonging. All right. Well, I think you just came up with a title for this show. So World of Belonging it is. Thank you so much for that. And so I know our audience is going to want to learn more about you so they can connect with you. So how can they connect with you? Where can they find you?
So definitely I'm on LinkedIn, Alycia Anderson, Alycia. My website, first and foremost, my husband's always like, don't forget to mention the website, AlyciaAnderson.com, Alycia Anderson.com. Please check out my TEDx talk on YouTube. It's called Disabling Ableism, the Modern Pathway to Inclusion. Instagram. My social handle is Alycia Speaking. So anywhere there, and yeah, reach out.
All right. Well, thank you very much for
Thank you.
taking time today, for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your heart and your wisdom with our audience, Alycia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great to meet you.
All right, Impact Heroes, it's our stories that connect us all, and we loved hearing Alycia's today. So, Alycia Anderson, you truly are an iSpark Chain's social impact hero. Remember, Impact Heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.